going to take you on a quick backstage tour of the 2020 Fright Theater and take a look at how this thing actually works. So we're just going to get right into it and start with the heart of the system, which is the show computer. And that's just a basic Windows machine. That's hooked up to this uninterruptible power supply just because, you know, we have really, really bad voltage spikes and we have really, really bad voltage lows. So rather than having computers and everything else start resetting when that happens, it's nice to just have an uninterruptible that manages all of our power and just keeps a nice steady stream going out to all of our really, really important electronics. Then there's the show monitor over here, so I just ran a camera over to the stage, and it just shows a live view, so that I can see if something's going wrong during a show, or I can see if a servo's jammed up, or just kind of, you know, general, like, easy to spot things. The last kind of really notable thing on this table is the interface box here, and that kind of just controls all the interfacing to Helmsman. So rather than pressing Alt and whatever key on the keyboard, this is just a dedicated hardware interface that also hooks up to the external control stuff that's on the back of the show, and then it also has a little voltage bias out. So that's kind of everything that comprises this system, and then obviously, you know, you got your recording stuff here, but that's not in use while the show's running. That's just for programming purposes. So after the data is kind of, you know, after we start the show here, our data goes a few ways. One way is it goes out via USB in through the NTEC, and that sends it out via DMX, and so the DMX goes all the way across the garage door. The other way is it can go basically through this serial connection here, and that serial connection goes and does all the servo stuff on the stage that runs there. And that also, there's a VGA cable that runs over to there for the moving portrait as well. So after, you know, we get all of our data going here, so we send DMX over to this side of the garage essentially, and then DMX feeds into here and it runs into all the lights on the stage first, and then it runs into these few decoders and relay devices over here. So the DMX essentially, right, controls lighting, the relays, and fog machine, as well as some other small things like the garage door. So there's individual devices pretty much for all of those tasks, except, you know, the DMX lights, which are for the show. So the few things that we have on this side here are this small DMX decoder. This runs the outdoor strip lights because they're RGBW. This is an RDM capable controller. I've never used RDM like in my life, at least with VSA. So you know, it's not used to its fullest, but it's fine. And then we also have this larger 36-channel decoder, which has a couple channels that are burnt out, but, you know, it still has a lot of good channels on it, so we use that. And this one is mainly for the pumpkins on the roof, the backlights, the fireplace, all that kind of stuff. Low voltage devices. It also controls the air cannon, mainly because I ran out of relays, so I just ran a 12-volt relay into one of the outputs on here, and it works fine. So then over here is kind of our high amperage relay system, and that controls mainly the garage door, the fog machine, and this larger AC strobe that's in the back. So this is just for all the high voltage stuff, and it's nice to have that kind of isolated. And then there's also kind of a manual shut-off for the garage door, obviously. So then we kind of move over to the the user interface control here, and that uses that aforementioned kind of little silver box. And so this plugs directly into that. It runs power from that, and it can control basically everything, every aspect of the show, and it runs 6 different shows, so you can push this button to start any of the 6 shows that you want. It has a dedicated stop and pause button. It's got key switches for everything, as well as this nice big e-stop button that just cuts power for the show, so you can, you know, if there's a servo that's bound up, or if you see something that's really not right, you can just hit that and everything stops. And then it also can control the garage door as well, so you have, you know, pretty much all the control that you need right in one easy, you know, small form factor controller. And then it also has a nice little small RCA monitor up here, and that just shows the show status, what show's playing. So just, you know, at a quick glance you can kind of know what exactly is going on. Obviously it's not super high resolution, but it's high resolution enough to see what you need. So, and then you also have this little 6-channel relay, which we never use the relay. because I always wanted to be in here when the show was running, so I never felt comfortable like clicking a relay and just letting this thing run. But theoretically, you could have, you know, a wireless remote and just push a button and the whole thing would start. And that's also lockout. That has a lockout here on that panel as well. So then moving over from that, we have our audio side of things. So the audio basically just comes out of the computer, right, in that 3.5mm jack. And it comes across the garage door, and then it goes in here with RCA. And this is just a cheap Radio Shack mixer that I got years and years ago. And it doesn't do much, but it works for what it does. Basically, we just got a fader here for the show audio in, and it mutes that, and it unmutes that, and then we got our master volume out. And so it really is not doing that much, but it's nice to have a physical volume control just to be able to push up and down. It's much easier than like going into the software and trying to move, you know, and control stuff. And then you obviously, like, especially with Windows, when you're trying to adjust volume, you get nice, you know, Windows feedback sounds. So this is a great way to just like avoid all that stuff. You know, you have nice dedicated volume control, and also it gives us a nice EQ. So especially when we're using a literal garbage audio system, and I say that literally. So the audio system for this show came directly from the trash, and that's just straight facts in the way that I got this power supply in the garbage. This is a car amplifier that somebody threw out, and then it's all mounted on a piece of wood that came from the trash, hooked up to speakers, which were in, again, someone's trash. So this entire audio system cost me pretty much $0, which I like to take some pride in, because it sounds pretty good for a free audio system. And then obviously I can tune it with the EQ over here, which is nice. And so then the other kind of like really, really big piece of operational hardware here is this relay switcher, and then this is just the fog machine control. That's kind of insignificant, but there's a relay in here that runs that, and that's controlled by the 12-volt unit over there, and that just gives you manual control as well. But moving down to here, this is the main switch pack, and this is just a big power conditioner here. So that's just to basically, you've got a lot of different changing switches and changing devices, and it's a lot of power that's being fed through the same lines around each other, and obviously there's stray capacitances everywhere. So this power conditioner kind of just helps to remove that and clean up audio, so that there's less like pops from the fog machine, less pops from our high voltage devices, all that stuff. And it also just like, this is just a basic American DJ switcher, so it allows me to switch on and off loads like the servos. So, you know, obviously if the show's not running, you want to have the servos off. Don't want to strain the servos, because we want to make sure they last as long as they can, since they're actually installed in the characters. So that allows me to turn that off really quick, and it also allowed me to turn off the outside, the guy that tips his hat, and it allowed me to turn off the guy on the side that would do the jokes. So I had an easy switch here to just flip all that off. One quick switch. So then moving backstage, there's a couple small things that, you know, are key to the operation. Take a look backstage and take a look at all the hardware that makes the show run. So behind here we have our main power in that comes in from the ceiling, and that goes in and distributes to all the AC devices. So that's what this is here. And then back here, it's kind of hard to see, it's really dark, but you can kind of see here's the strobe light for the thunder and lightning that's back here, and then up here is the LCD monitor, and that's just screwed in with a really kind of crude wooden bracket. And this is the back of the fireplace right here. There's a fog machine here that runs that, and then there's LED lights that are in here as well, so that gives it kind of the flickering fire effect that you see. And then back behind this kind of scary curtain is just the Arduino for the guy on the roof, with a little relay board here. So it's just an Arduino on a breakout shield with a relay, and then that runs into this little AC, you know, power cord, and that just flips on and off this solenoid here, which was hooked up to the guy on the roof, and that made him tip his hat up and down. And that was pretty much it. We also had a light timer just to make sure all the lights and everything turned on when it was dark outside. But yeah, that was pretty much it for back here. The main purpose of this was to act as kind of a dark space for the thunder and lightning effects. and it worked really, really well for that. We put this this kind of felt material here, and that ate a lot of the light. And then there's obviously this layer of black plastic behind it that cuts pretty much all of the light out when it's light. Even in the daylight, you really can't see much back here. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Backstage. And then obviously we have all of our old stuff, but that's it for Backstage. And now we'll take a look on the actual stage itself. So let's go ahead over there. So now we're going to go actually onto the stage. So we're going to open this well-built stage door right here, which is made of, all out of Luan. This whole wall is made out of Luan. So we'll walk in here. And in here. Alright, so basically on the front of the stage, I'll just go over kind of the cool stuff first, and then we'll get to the boring stuff. So the cool things is we've got two American DJ V-bars down here, and that does basically the wash lighting for the whole show. And so there's two of those. Those are really kicker. And then there's the camera right in the middle here that feeds to the live CCTV monitor that we already showed. So then kind of moving up over here, we got the actual puppets themselves. We got the Raven, he's screwed down to the floor, and all of his cables kind of just run out of his base here, and then down there's a big 1/4-inch hole behind his foot here that everything runs through, and then there's another hole right behind the crate here that runs all the wires up to the pumpkin and to the skeleton, because obviously, he has his separate control wires. And then we obviously have the monitor back here. This is all just printed. The majority of this stuff, instead of doing custom paint colors for all of it and stenciling it and doing all that, which would have taken a lot of time that we honestly didn't have, we instead used Photoshop. So for these books, these are all created in Photoshop, then printed on a really nice laser printer. And then I just stuck them on here with some, it's spray adhesive, but it's repositionable kind, so you can kind of move it around. And so I stuck all those up here, and there's some different designs, obviously, to give it some variance between the shelves. But that looks really good. It looks really 3D, especially. And the same thing we did for the portrait frame, except for this is mounted on some, it's, I believe, 1/4-inch foam. And that just, gives it a little backing. And it also hides the monitor edge here. And then obviously for these pictures, these are just, some Photoshop pictures that were printed inside of these little frames. And then with the same repositionable adhesive, I just stuck them up here. And some of them are peeling now, obviously, but, they worked for a while, they needed to. So, and then we have the fireplace, which I kind of talked about earlier, but there's a little LED strip in there, and then there's 3 holes where fog comes out, and then this is all just a black box here to keep the fog in, and it really does billow out when it's running, so it gave a really nice effect. And then these are just 1x2 windows, tiny thing, but these look really nice, and especially with the thunder and lightning effects, it looks great. And 2 of them obviously to match, and then the fireplace with the same trim. And then there's also the big thing with the whole back wall is there's a LED strip light in here in the crease, and that essentially allows you to have this really nice LED uplight on the back wall. So it almost acts like a cyc, but even though there isn't a big enough area for one in here, it gives you kind of a good scene color, which is really nice. So with all the lights that are kind of combined, it gives you a really good effect. So then, looking more closely at kind of the light fixtures that are on the stage itself, there's one RGB parcan in here in each window. So there's 2 back here, and then there's also 2 in the ceiling. So there's one for the Raven, obviously, and one for the skeleton. And these are just cheap RGB parcans. They're really not that expensive, but they do the job. They do the job really well. And they have a really nice quick strobe, which is the main feature of them, so we use that a lot in the show. So that's about it for this. In total, it took about 2 or 3 months. The stage itself and took about a month to build. Obviously, all this was kind of custom construction. None of this was prefabricated. So building the stage took, a while. one thing you may or may not be able to tell from the video, I don't know how easy it is to tell, is the stage is on a rake. It's actually all on an angle. So if I walk up the stage, it actually looks like I'm growing. This wall back here is 8 feet tall at the top here. The floor is just raised a lot. And the basic idea of that is, one, for the perspective, and two, it provides sound staging as well. But it really is a perspective thing. It gives you this sense that the space is much larger than it is. Because really, the stage is only 12 feet long, and you lose a lot of that to the edges of these walls and to the characters themselves. So trying to make this seem like a big space in what really is a 12 by 8 footprint was key. And for that, raking the stage, it made sense. So that was pretty much one of the biggest, as far as carpentry things, that was one of the largest things that I had to do. And then just building these walls and painting them and getting these nice crisp lines. Obviously these walls are not angular walls. I didn't have the foresight to design them like that, but I just blackout painted them, and you know, it looks really good at night. So it ended up working out really nice. Obviously there's some carpentry things that I'm not entirely happy with, but it looks really, really good when the show's running, so I can't complain at all. And the nice thing is I can actually walk on this stage. It's a miracle. So this was my first go at it, doing it all by myself without any supervision, and I have to say I'm pretty proud of making something that multiple people can stand on without collapsing. So that was a big triumph. But yeah, that's about it. We're about to just start wrapping him up and, you know, taking these guys out and taking all the walls down, so getting ready to get rid of this whole thing. But glad we could take you guys on a quick behind the scenes tour and show you what it was all about. So yeah, see you later.